Welcome to episode 40 of season 5 of Whole Lot of Wolves. I'm Joshua Buckley with my co-host Paul LePage.
Hello.
In New York on the socials, Mr. Alex Patakis.
Hey.
And on the socials in Baltimore, it's Danny Paletti.
Hello.
All right, guys. It was a game day today. Kind of wish it wasn't. Another, stinker midweek at Selhurst Park. 4-2 final score. Really probably, some of these losses recently, it's like, Wolves probably deserve something. They didn't deserve squat this game. Just a lot of issues. Paul, the lineup was the big talk coming in. 6 changes were made. We saw no Cunha or Gomez or João Gomez starting. We did see Rodrigo Gomez starting. Giga starting. Okay. Sarabia, Guedes. So what were your thoughts beforehand with the lineup?
He talked to it in the press conference yesterday, but I thought that may be some smoke and mirrors and he'd still go for it with a pretty strong team that was like our core starters, especially seems we had a lot more recovery time, certainly than Palace from our last game. So I didn't think real fitness or anything would impact on that. So it was somewhat surprising. I can see now that why he wanted to give some minutes, but it really shows when you have a particular game like that at the end of the season against a team that probably, not has something to play for, but certainly buoyed from the cup win and everything that went with that. It should have been a test for a lot of these players. Unfortunately, it was, and we kind of got shown up.
So it was interesting. We saw Guedes come back into the lineup, not just on the team, in the starting 11. Alex, do you think he's just performing really well in practice? Because Vitor has been saying he's rewarding guys. I can't see any other reason. I mean, is Guedes just like doing awesome at practice, hustling his butt off and deserving this spot?
I find that hard to believe, but maybe I'm wrong. Certainly, I also think it's just a lack of options. We clearly don't have the type of player that he is looking for in that role outside of obviously Matheus Cunha, who would normally occupy a role of that sort. I don't think Marshall Manetti necessarily fits that role. I also feel like he's played a lot of minutes, so it makes sense for him not to be someone that you force into it. I just don't think we have any other options. I have to really be plain about it like that. And, why not give him a run? It's very likely that he's out. It's a bit of putting him in the shop window and a bit of just not having other options. I guess you could say maybe Bellegarde could play there, but I also feel like he wanted to give João Gomez a rest, who I think deserves it. And we don't really have anyone else who could play in that position, considering he doesn't really rate Tommy Doyle. So when that's true and you already have to have Bellegarde playing the Gomez role, who am I forgetting? What am I missing?
Danny, I kind of appreciated the lineup today because we're at the point in the season where we need to know what we have for next year. And some of these young guys, you can't just assume they can handle it. We can't just assume Rodrigo can be a starting right wing back next year. We can't assume Giga can come in. Am I looking at that wrong, or what?
Yeah, it's funny. The lineup was so odd to me because, in contrast, you have like Rodrigo Gomez and Giga perfectly fine, even like Bellegarde playing in midfield. But then like Sarabia and Guedes, who we know are almost certainly out the door in the summer. And I guess I kind of think of it like I wish that he had just changed the players who he was actually trying to take a look at, and maybe even earmark some to have a look at in the second half. Like, not suggesting this specifically, but like Rodrigo Gomez, instead of playing the first half, could play the second half. And like that'd be fine. Like if that's the purpose of it. And like while they're on the field, I'd rather them be playing in a team that represents like what we expect what he hopes the team will look like next season. So like I think we don't expect that Giga or a Giga-like player is going to play in that position. And so like you're kind of not giving the player who's in front of him, Rodrigo Gomez, kind of a fair shake to do what he's going to do. So like even if you think like Tomato's gone or Doherty is not going to play as big a part next season, then like having them in just to say like, okay, this is a placeholder. Next season, it'll be a person that we sign who is of roughly equivalent quality to them, like just to like see what they look like in a team that we hope we will see. And kind of to that point, I mean, like, it's funny that this game got kind of cast once we saw the changes as like, oh, well, we have nothing to play for anymore. We're safe now. And it's like, Ipswich are sitting on like 25 points. We were realistically safe weeks ago. He could have put out this team against City. He could have put out this team against Man United. Like there were plenty of times to like change things. And I just don't see why like now with only 2 games left is the time to suddenly kind of do this haphazard changing. And, and I'm like, he knows that he's doing better than I do, but I'm not sure that like we learned a ton from that. And it was kind of a bummer to go into this game feeling like no matter what happens, there's kind of like a huge asterisk on it.
So one of those young guys, Paul, that we got a chance to see was Giga. That may have been one of the worst performances I have ever seen watching Wolves. It reminded me of Jesus Vallejo back in 2019, where he came in for one start and Nuno benched him in the second half. It's one thing to not be good enough in the Premier League to play. Like, I think we can say Guedes, some of these other guys, they're just not good enough, and that makes them a little frustrating. But to jog like the entire game, 2 of those goals, he should have had a key part in defending, and he's just like, oh, I got beat, do. And even a couple other times. Oh, am I overreacting? I don't think I am.
I think there's an element of, again, to Danny's point about the experimentation, that both of those changes are on his side. And also the goalkeeper as well. Like a goalkeeper makes tremendous amount of difference in terms of comfort and confidence, the man behind you. So that factors into it. But then again, we're not talking about some kid out of the youth team. We're talking about someone who's, albeit young, was brought in for a very sizable amount. They were talking on our commentary feed about the games in Europe that he's played, and the wins, and the cups that he's won and everything. So it's a player of a certain caliber, and when you stack all of that up together, you are more in the spotlight of getting a start and being in the first 11, trying to cement possibly a place for next season. You are going to be looked at, and certainly you should be expected to do a little bit more than what we saw tonight.
Again, I'm okay if they're not good enough, if they're still out there hustling and trying. That's what I could say about Manetzi. I still don't know if he's starting quality for a good Premier League side. The dude runs his ass off. And Giga was, taking I've got a bad hip right now. I think me and him could have had a similar little race. Just
have you guys ever watched Olympic power walking?
Oh, he would have lost that too. He wasn't even walking well.
Well, I was just saying, like, his jog kind of looks like that. Even the way he was like moving his arms to the side for the second goal for Palace, I was like, is he injured? Like, what is he? Is he like half committed? What is that? It was more of like a power walk, a competitive power walk than anything else.
And he wasn't like moving with the rest of the line well. He was all over the place. I mean, Danny, there's unless he like improves 200%, you can't go in counting on him next year, right? He's got to get loaned. Giga was jogging.
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm a little less quick to write him off immediately. The folks we know who have watched him live back up the point that he's really not ready. He is only 22, which especially for a center back just feels like quite young. And I think like we forget that because he's kind of big and tall, doesn't look that young, but alone certainly could do it. But it's like, I mean, we're going to get to all this a little bit more later in the episode and also, at the end of the season. But it feels like we went from a time, especially when we were winning games, thinking like, well, we don't necessarily need tons more players, to now that list just keeps growing. When you say that, Giga isn't like a good enough backup if there's a long-term injury or even a medium-term injury, someone is out for a month. If Yerson Mosquera comes back as good as he was, and we're all excited for that, but then, he gets a small hip injury that takes him out for a month and we're not comfortable with Giga as a backup, then suddenly like you need another player to be on the bench. And I think, Gary O'Neill and Matt Hobbs's point at the beginning of the season is well taken, that we are not a team that can afford to have tons of people on the bench who are like, starter quality, but you have to at least be comfortable with them coming in for 3 or 4 games in a stretch.
I still say Doc's gonna be the starting right center back to start. Yeah, just because I don't think Mosquera is going to be ready right out of the gate. I mean, that was a pretty bad knee injury, but I think I won't be at all surprised if when they open the season, he's the starting right center back. Alex, we scored on a set piece, and it was Agbadou's first goal, too. We wondered how he'd react. He looked kind of shocked.
He looked a little shocked. I think the manner in which he scored, the fact that it was delayed because the referee's little goal line technology watch or whatever it is had to rumble a bit. But that was pretty great. I'm a little annoyed. I've been placing the wrong very, very small wager every week on one of our center backs to finally score off of a corner. Although I'm glad it wasn't a Totti goal, because I wouldn't have been able to get it in because I missed the start of this game for work. Could you imagine if I look down at my phone and it says Totti Gomez goal, 24th minute, and it's the first week in like 2 months I haven't bet on him to score? That would be very, very frustrating. But no, that's good. And we've seen that is in Agbadou's locker. I think when Wolves signed him in January, the first thing everybody does is they go to the YouTube highlights and they see, and I remember commenting on him having actually quite a few shots on target for players at his position comparatively, and some of those are him just absolutely booting it with his foot, but also he can be dangerous on corners. So good to see that. Good to see that size and physicality finally pay off on of our back line, and good job by Larson. The headed assist, I guess he gets credit for by going up over Richards, an American, and winning that ball to get it to Agbadou. So you love to see it. Just wish we saw it more frequently than we did this season.
Paul, I do think that goal though kind of took Agbadou. He lost his concentration a little bit for the rest of the first half. It seemed like he made some uncharacteristic passing, defensive errors. Do you think that goal kind of got him a little too excited and took him out of his game? You're on mute.
I don't think so. I just think it was a bad all-round effort, really. That more end of season on the beach type of showing, really across the back line as well, because as you mentioned, he was at fault as well in the collective. So I think, again, whenever you're in that type of situation, and we've seen it countless times, and certainly more in the O'Neill tenure, when you score that goal and then within a few minutes immediately cough up the equaliser or get that equaliser and fall behind again, it's just that's the type of stuff that you want to cut out. And I thought for certainly big bulks of Vitor's tenure, we'd done that. So I'm putting it down to really them being checked out and just kicking it around till the season comes to an end.
Well, Palace went up 2-1 by halftime, and the stadium was rocking, Paul. I tweeted at one point, these fans don't give a flying fuck if they win this game. They were there to party and have a great time and enjoy life. Do you almost think that that was a better atmosphere than at Wembley for actually winning the cup?
I don't think so, just because you're comparing apples to oranges in terms of venue. So a lot gets taken out of Wembley just based on the closeness of the pitch again, and certainly with a stadium like Selhurst Park, which 4 stands are right on the touchlines really, and very close in. So I think they're able to make the most of what they got in terms of drumming up an atmosphere like that. But it's exactly what you would be doing. It certainly came across fantastically. So fair play to them for that.
With it a weeknight game, Danny, how many pints do you think was each person averaged at that stadium tonight?
I mean, you've got to go in there with at least 3 under your belt, I assume. I kind of wouldn't expect anything less. I'd be disappointed. Yeah, no, I mean, it was a party atmosphere, and rightfully so. Really wish that I have the FA Cup aside. I still wish after this good run that we've had that we were heading into the final game of the season with the same vibes, but we've sort of stumbled at the final hurdle.
Alex, did I go to the last win of the year?
It kind of feels like it.
We'll get into that.
I don't know
predictions, but I'm a little worried. Yeah. Or maybe that means they need to bring me back, Paul. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be the lucky charm.
Yeah, got to be the hat. So Palace went up 3-1 pretty early in the second half on a deflected goal. Vitor had made some changes, though. Did you like how he was still attempting to go for it and kind of correct some of those lineup changes?
I think so, in the fact that it's recognized, and I think that's been one positive certainly that we weren't really accustomed to. Is previously substitutions had been made too late or ran on too long and didn't have that impact to really change it. So I think it's more telling that it's a big decision when you make any change at half time, and to make 2 was even bigger. So I think that was important, that at least it's recognized and there was that conscious effort to try and switch it around.
It felt weird to me, Danny, to see Aït-Nouri on the right side there in the second half. How do you feel about that? Because they moved Rodrigo to the left side. I think, again, that's just trying to figure out, okay, where's Rodrigo best going to be? It just looks so weird having Aït-Nouri on the right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was also kind of getting Rodrigo to be supported by a different cast over on that side. But honestly, it kind of worked. I think weirdly, it worked better for Ryan Aït-Nouri than it did for Rodrigo Gomez, because, and I don't like, I'm thinking back to under O'Neill. I think he played over on the right sometimes, more as a winger when we were really struggling with injuries. But, I think it's improved a bit, his ability to cut in on his left. And there were some pretty decent moves there. I think if the lineup and the game had been built towards him doing that, we might have seen something come out of it, like a goal. But as it was, I wouldn't say that Palace were just sitting back with the result, but they were very compact. And even though he did make some decent, incisive runs and passes from that side, it never really amounted to anything.
Alex, JSL scored then on another set piece to at least bring Wolves within 1. He has more non-penalty goals than Raul in his first season, and he got an assist. I mean, overall, how would you grade his season thus far?
I think you have to grade it an A. Just given the expectations, right? Like, this guy is coming in, he scored some goals in La Liga, but not. I think he has more goals this year in the Prem than he did last year in La Liga. I have to double check that, which is certainly something. He clearly elevated his game when taking a massive step up in the physicality of the league for the Premier League. And how many times have we seen guys come into this league and they're just, quote unquote, not suited for it, right? So he is suited for it. I also think it's particularly impressive that he did that in a season where he missed a decent number of games. So it's not like he was healthy and participating, starting and / making appearances in all 38 of our games, or 37 so far. There were spans where he was gone. When he was gone, his absence was certainly felt. I think we are at our best when he's leading our line. So I think, for a team that for half the season looked doomed to be relegated, to now be looking back on it and still have technically on loan a striker who is at a pretty prime age to entering his prime on what will end up being a pretty friendly transfer for the club. I think that's outstanding. And he said right away, off the bat, I remember, the other thing that sticks in my mind from some of the press when he was brought into Wolves, other than Matt Hobbs lying to his face saying that we were going to be pushing for Europe, is that he was a type of player who, if he had to have a tooth knocked out, I think he said, I'm paraphrasing here, to try to help the club or win, he would do that. He absolutely played like that every time that he was on the pitch, to the point of pressing and running to exhaustion and having his former manager question his fitness. I would argue maybe he was doing a little bit too much to now being a player we can count on if needed to play a full 90, lead the line, lead the press, and lead us up front attacking. So yeah, super pleased. I would go A. I don't know if I'm maybe way too high. Maybe A- if we want to get really granular, because obviously there's always room for improvement, but I'm high on him right now.
I think it should also not go unnoticed that he also went through a dry spell, which was probably related to the injury, and then pulled himself back out of it, because that's super difficult to do, and to find that form again. And again, finding the form again relied also on us slightly changing the way that we're playing, because Cunha was suspended and we were feeding him a lot better. But, not every player can do that. Even I don't necessarily hold anything against Hwang. I still think that he's potentially a useful player, but he's one who we've seen suffer in that way, where he'll be hot for a period and then really struggle to pull himself out of a dry spell. And whether it was a team effort or whether it was Jurgen Strand-Larsen just finding a way to score goals, that's a really useful ability as well.
Now, Alex, you said there's always room for improvement. Do you have one of those bosses that on performance time refuses to give a 5 out of 5 because there's always room for improvement?
Wow, you read me like a book. Yes, I certainly do. In
no
fact,
one's perfect.
Our company policy it's a grade out of 5, and you have to do something extraordinary, change the course of our company's future to get anything above a 4. So and 3 is considered excellent. So yes, Josh, that's exactly what
I had a boss like that. I hated it. It's just give me a break.
We got to move on to more football. Otherwise, I'm going to turn this into an anti-capitalist podcast.
I bet you Ford treats Paul better, though, don't they? He's no comment. Paul, 4th goal came via Crystal Palace with Eze. Dan Bentley should have done a better job on that, shouldn't he?
I think that particular one's questionable, just based on anticipation of it, really. But the worst part of that, and smarter people than me have tweeted it, was just why it was even in that vicinity to begin with, in order to give him an attempt. And it was a carbon copy of pretty much every single similar type of Palace goal they've scored against us, in which is an absolute hellhole of a ground for us to go to and ever get a result from. They just seem like the same every time at that end of the pitch. So by that point, it was just you were kind of expecting it. We might have huffed and puffed and tried to get that equalizer, but you always had that nagging feeling that we get done on some type of counter attack on the break, and that was it. But I'm more pissed off than what led up to it than the keeper on that one. I don't think he covered himself in glory tonight. I think Sarr would have certainly made better attempt at probably 2 of the goals, but I think it was more worrisome what was going on in front of him.
Okay. Well, guys, Semedo didn't start. Normally our captain. So this time it was Toti who started, which I thought was a little confusing, Danny. And then I saw it was his 100th cap. Was that just kind of a reward, or is this something for the future we should watch for Toti Gomez captain?
It would be one that would surprise me if Toti was the captain next season. Although I don't know that it should necessarily surprise me because I
think he's the longest tenured that was out there, right? Him or Aït-Nouri, and I can't see Aït-Nouri being captain.
Also depends when you count, the beginning of their tenure, because he spent part of that time in Switzerland. But I think I imagine it had more to do with recognizing, his 100th appearance for Wolves. It's really been an amazing journey. It bears repeating again. Someone who was bought for minimal money and immediately shipped off to Grasshoppers when that seemed like the death knell for any Wolves prospect was to head out to Grasshoppers, and did really well there, and got brought back during an emergency and immediately staked his claim in that spot. And it was kind of interesting to think about with him taking the armband instead of Semedo, where I feel like he's had a very similar arc to Semedo. I guess the difference being Semedo coming from Barcelona, but Toti has come in and been a pretty solid presence the entire time he's been there, but not stand out enough to really shrug off the sort of divisive figure tag that he gets, where some people took a long time to see his quality and some people still don't. But throughout that, he's been a really steady presence. A good recognition for 100 appearances for Toti. And I definitely don't think that he's out of usefulness for Wolves.
And I bring up the captaincy, Alex, because it looked like, Wolves, there was talk. They're trying to bring Nelson back. Then there was a photo today of moving vans in Nelson Semedo's yard. So that doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't. I don't know what other sign we need that he's going to be gone. I mean, we've been talking about this for months on end, expecting it. It seems like he's counting down the days, of which there are now days, not weeks, where he will depart and probably not be coming back to Wolverhampton. So it does seem like the writing is on the wall there. The contract talks, I guess, have seemed to stall. I haven't seen anything new in relation to that in the way of there being momentum for him coming back. And it's disappointing to lose a figure who I think was really stable in a very turbulent season for Wolves this year. We probably never give Semedo enough credit for a lot of different things, but what was happening at the end of Gary O'Neill's era and Mario Lemina, his kind of meltdown and then departure when he was our captain. I mean, that's like a ridiculous situation to walk into for Nelson Semedo to then take the captain's armband. Probably not one of our most vocal players, certainly on the pitch. Maybe not the first player we all would have thought of, but was actually a really steadying presence. I thank him for it. I thank him for his time at Wolves. I think he was always underappreciated. And one of the things I think that we learned in this game, where I do agree with Danny generally that we didn't learn a whole lot, is that the drop off from him to Rodrigo or whoever else might play at that right wing back position, if we are going to continue to play in this 3-4-2-1 next season, is fairly significant. Particularly, and I know that like Giga being back there obviously ties into that, but this Wolves great run, in addition to playing teams that were all beneath us in the table, okay, fine. But it was really, the basis of it was in defensive solidity that was clearly missing today. So whether that was Giga starting for Doherty, whether that was Semedo missing, and Rodrigo obviously being much more apt to get forward than Semedo usually is, and thus having to track back, leaving someone like Giga exposed, whatever that is, that shit needs to get figured out this summer, right? Like, we can't take this for granted and just expect Rodrigo Gomez to be starting there in the first match week of next season when we inevitably play like some incredibly good team. Whichever of the major teams has the best summer is who we'll probably open with, because that's just the way the schedule gods always play this thing out. So please pay attention to what we saw in this match, Jeff Shee. Not that you really give a shit, but I know we all do, because it was a little scary. It's a little scary to be ending the season this way too, and then go into next year being all feel good about the, like, how many times have we had the tale of like one good half season and then a manager walks into a death trap the following season? Like, we cannot do that again. So take from this that we are nowhere near, like, take the 60 whatever million from Cunha and buy like 6 players, man. Like, that's what we need. I don't want to turn this into a transfer thing. You asked me about Semedo. We'll miss you, Nelson. I hope the move goes swiftly. I don't know where you're going. Go back to Benfica. Enjoy it. You were a great player, a great servant of our club.
Yeah, Alex, we'll have our transfer show in the next episode or two, including my player who would be the perfect fit to replace Matheus Cunha. It's a teaser, folks. I'm still teasing this. Paul, this would be the 5th captain gone in 4 years. Is this a major concern about leadership in the locker room?
I don't think so. Because all of the players that we talked about there, they've been picked for the role for a reason. So in one respect, it's good that they've had a certain number of players that they can rely on to do, for the most part, a pretty decent job. I think the likes of Semedo, certainly what he's been able to do this second half of the season as a stabilizing factor after Lamina was massive. I think it's got probably more to do with what's looked at in terms of captain caliber players, whereas Semedo, you can count on him. Lamina probably not so much. Maybe question marks around Kilman, even, that good player. Was he the really type of leader that was needed when you compare him to the likes of Connor Cody, for example? So I don't think it's necessarily to do with the dressing room, but I do think it would certainly wouldn't do any harm if future recruitment is based on that leadership element, the ability to captain a team, ideally someone someone who's done it in the past. But what we've struggled with is really bringing anyone through, apart from Neves, that can come in without the armband and be an obvious captain of the future or within a period of time. I think the issue right now is if you looked at that squad, there's not a direct replacement for a captain.
And one person we know will not be a captain next year, and that is Matheus Cunha, who, Talking Wolves, Dave, as a party, has said that those terms with Manchester United and Cunha, pretty much a done deal. I did hear, Danny, that Wolves may be getting some add-ons as part of, hey, we don't have the $62.5 million right now, so here's an extra 8 to tack onto the bill. I don't know if that's really good, though, because that means Jeff's going to be like, all right, we didn't get the whole 62.5 right away.
Well, if he says that, then it's bogus, and I'll leave the financial analysis to Stu on Fancast. But But the point is that I mean, you've really found how to trigger me, Josh.
I always know how to trigger all of you.
I'm still seeing comments about where's the Jota money, and they still haven't finished paying us for Jota and all that nonsense. The reality is that every transfer these days is done in installments, and for the purposes of accounting, it is just not that simple. It's not like Wolves are waiting for the next window, January or May, to receive that next amount of money. They are receiving a sum nominally, in that they can spend. And then also you have to remember that we're buying people in the same way. So, when we spend whatever it is, 20, 30 to make Strand Larsen's deal permanent, we're not shipping them a truckload of 30 million pounds. We're also paying an installment. So it's really not worth thinking about these installments like they're somehow hamstringing us. Although to your point, I would not be surprised if, unscrupulous people like Jeff Shee use that as a talking point to not spend. And that's always a concern. But yeah, Cunha seems as good as gone. It's still a bit of an odd one to me, but I am happy that somebody, in this case United, are willing to come in very early in the window, because that's the key thing to me. We've been getting a lot of little news drips from Fabrizio Romano, but I suspect that nothing is actually happening. He's just making news. But hopefully it means that things are getting teed up to actually move very swiftly at the beginning of the window, because that's the most important part. I guess, we'll get into this more at another time, but there's 2 windows this summer that's broken up by the Club World Cup. I don't remember the exact dates, but to me, at the very least, that deal needs to be done before the Club World Cup starts, so that they can get to work on spending the money.
100%. Wouldn't it be the most Wolvesy thing ever if Wolves acquired Jota and ended up having to pay Liverpool money before Liverpool's paid Wolves all the money? I could see that. All right, guys, we got one more game left in this season, and it is a home match against Brentford. It's Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. Not any type of really excitement, definitely for Wolves' way as far as what's at stake on decision day. Same for winning the league. So it should be fairly quiet, other than a few people jostling for Champions League. But now that we've seen what Vitor threw out for the lineup today, Paul, what are you wanting to see on Sunday for the season finale?
I'd probably lean on those that we've come to rely on, certainly under his tenure, and that's the likes of Doc back in, Semedo starting, our midfield too, of Andre and Joe Gomez, those that have really put the put the team first and helped us out the situation that we're in. So I hope it's a stronger team than certainly the 11 that was trotted out tonight. I can take it or leave it as far as Cunha goes. If he is being purposely not started based on this move being extremely close, then fair enough. So I think if we go that route, try our best to put that strongest 11 out. Hopefully set up some service for Strand Larsen to continue. That'd be nice.
Now, we know Lopetegui doesn't give a crap about this, but I'm very curious to see if Vitor is wanting to give some of the guys proper swan songs. Obviously, Semedo is going to be widely cheered when I'm sure they'll bring him or take him off in the second half. But I'm curious, Alex, what do you think the reaction will be for Cunha when he either comes in late in the match or comes off in the second half?
That's a hard one. I've been thinking about this, and I don't know what the reception will necessarily be. For me, once I know a player is basically a Man United player, it's very hard for me not to go to this place where I immediately kind of forget about all the great things they did on the pitch and channel some of that same fire I have for like Pedro Neto now.
You hate Neto.
Well, I don't hate Neto. I mean, his character is not as questionable as Matheus Cunha. Like Matheus Cunha was a great talent. I guess he acknowledged the fact that Wolves revitalized what was an otherwise like fledgling career for someone who had pretty high expectations. So if he is thankful for that, great. I guess we can clap him off. I don't think he's going to get a bad reception, but I also don't think he needs to get, like a hero's not welcome, but departure, I guess, in any way. I mean, if you look at, as we reflect back on it this year, as great of a player as he was, and as brilliant as some of his goals were, and as vital as he was to us staying up, I can also say that when the going got tough, he absolutely crumbled. You know what I mean? Like his talent definitely shone through, but when the pressure of relegation was ramped up to its highest, he was getting suspended, right? Like he was having just meltdowns afterwards, fighting old men on the field. Kirkez knew exactly how to get into his head. He had another meltdown going into a run that we knew we were going to want to try to capitalize and get points. So like in our neediest points of the season, he wasn't there. And to some degree, you can argue that like Vitor was more responsible for Wolves staying up than Matheus Cunha. In fact, I don't really think it's that much of an argument. So in his mind, he may feel like a hero, and we should all be super thankful for him sticking around at Wolves for a season and keeping us up. But you're also a bullshitter who said that you wanted to fight for titles and trophies, and really you're just going to a club that has been in a complete downward spiral, that can pay you higher wages, but probably can't offer you anything that Wolves can't, other than higher shirt sales, higher wages, and maybe European football. Although I still feel like Ange is going to win this fucking Europa League to spite Dan Levy, maybe get fired, and he'll be playing for another mid-table team next year, one with higher expectations. So good luck with that. So if you could channel all that into a chant, that's what I would do for his reception as he walks off the pitch for the final time. But certainly that can't be done. So,
Danny, I think he's going to get a really good reception when he comes off the pitch.
Yeah, I know you and I are pretty much on the same page about this. You know, my prevailing theory, I guess, or mantra that I've been repeating to everyone that'll listen is that Twitter isn't real life. And I really love the community we have on Twitter, and I spend too much time there. But, I think that there is like an online fan sentiment, which is, to give online people more credit, like is a little bit more nuanced, kind of like Alex said, where it's like, yes, the contribution this season, yes, the goal at the Hawthorns, these things are all great. But also this whole season has just been a weird, slow moving departure / train wreck for Cunha at various times. And it's hard to get excited about a player in that position. But that being said, 90 to 95% of the match going fans are really not going to be thinking about that. They're going to be thinking about the player who scores the goals and the one who scored at the Hawthorns and those things, and who's a bit of a celebrity. And I don't just mean like he's well known in the town, but like he's got the personality of a celebrity. So for all those reasons, I think he'll pretty much get the biggest cheer that you can get, barring, the sort of like departures of like Neves, et cetera, the ones who have become legends and also like endeared to the club.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at that match, he is still very well liked. Everybody knows he's leaving, but he was still very well liked. Paul, who gets the bigger ovation, assuming Cunha does? Is it Cunha or Semedo?
I think Semedo will. Again, not directly. The Cunha element will take will take some recognizing, but I think again to that that online sentiment, that online judge of player, I think those that have gone and watched Semedo week in, week out will be a pretty good judge of what he's done in a Wolves jersey and the contribution that he's made and the like the loyalty that he's offered. He's seen a contract out. He's been here for a long time. He's been relatively, pretty much, apart from one lengthy injury, pretty healthy for the duration as well. So very dependable, very reliable. If you're going into that hard, like the working class blue collar culture of a typical Wolves fan, I think that's the type of thing that they'll lean into and give him that send off.
Well, let's look at the prediction standings. And, I said there was no drama for the EPL. Oh, but there is some drama in our pool. Danny, you've run away with it, 34 points. Congratulations. Alex, you've got 26. You have wrapped up second place. Congratulations. And me and Paul, tied at 21 points, Paul. What are we going to do this week? Well, let's start with Danny first, the champ. He gets his little, victory tunnel.
Yeah, I expect a guard of honor if I come up to
Yes.
McHale's.
Oh, that's so. I felt like I'm watching kids soccer when you're like, go on through. Anyways,
yeah, I don't know. I do think that being in front of the home fans, and it's funny, I've been harping on this online for a long time. Wolves have been very unlucky. I would say it's not luck. To have no home games on their first or last game of the season for like the last several years basically doesn't happen. And this is the first time we're actually getting a home game for a final match in like 3 or 4 years, I think. So that's going to be interesting. And I think the players will be a bit more up for it for that reason. I also hope, I have no idea, who knows what Vitor's going to do after this lineup tonight. I have no idea, but I hope that Vitor will see that, like, playing something closer to the starting 11 with maybe some changes would go down nicely, especially for the home fans. Seeing our regular midfield would go a long way. João Gomez and Andre. Man, I'm really treading water here, trying not to give a prediction. I might go with another draw. Oh, what the hell? Let's say Wolves win 2-1.
2-1 Wolves. All right. Okay, Alex?
Yeah, I think it's going to be like a preseason-ish feel, I guess, but in like a really chaotic way. I just feel like when players are checked out, like maybe there's a greater chance that there'll just be a lot of goals instead of no goals. Because as Giga proved to us, it's actually much harder to defend half-assed than it is to attack half-assed. So I'm going to go for like a 3-3 draw. Why not?
Woo.
Champions League is secured in second place, so let's just throw everything at it.
3-3 draw. Okay, Paul.
They've still got European aspirations, haven't they? If it goes to 8th.
Yeah, they have a better goal difference than Brighton, and Brighton finish away at Tottenham.
Okay.
And they're 3 points off Brighton. So a win and a Brighton loss would mean that Brentford would finish in that spot. Yeah.
Okay. With that in mind, I'm thinking they're going to go for it. There's going to be goals like that. And I am going for Wolves 2, Brentford 2.
Okay, so now this is interesting because I was thinking draw as well, but I was thinking 1-1. So do I stick with that and then, it basically comes down, or do I pick a Wolves win? Oh,
to stay up, Josh. You can't make predictions next year if you finish bottom.
I know. And I don't think Wolves are going to win this, but I don't want to close out the season by predicting a loss. But I am. I'm going to say 2-1 Brentford.
No Stupid Questions is brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Whether you're toasting some Vino de Vitor or winding down after a day of work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of wine country with each sip. Now at esfuerzowines.com, you can use the promo code Vitor, that's VITOR, at checkout to receive a 30% discount off your order. And don't forget to try the special edition 1-pack wines to show your passion and support for Wolves with each glass. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their product responsibly and in moderation.
Favorite part of the show, no stupid questions. You, the listener, get to ask us anything in relation to Wolves, and you could do so by either tweeting us on X at WLWpod, by sending us an email. hello@wholelotofwolves.com is the show's email address where you can do that. And if you are one of those watching on the live stream, feel free to drop your question in the chat, and we can get to as many as possible. So let's start with this one from Drew Freakin on X. Which current Wolves player, not named Larson, will get the most goals next season? And if Wolves don't bring in someone to outscore your answer, will they be in a relegation battle again? It's a fun one. Paul, non-Larson leading scorer on the squad right now next year.
I'm counting on the maximum of 4 fingers and a thumb, because I can't really see anyone going 3 or 4 more goals than who's left. Jeez, maybe it's Joe Gomez.
Yeah.
Ooh, Joe Gomez. I like
As an 8, he really adds goals to his game.
Let's go around the horn here. Josh, what do you think?
You know what my answer is. It is Rodrigo Gomez.
Oh, yeah? Well,
I think he's gonna have a big year, because I think he's gonna be I don't think he'll just settle at right back. I think you're gonna see him some at winger as well. I think he's gonna be all over. And yes, they'd be in a relegation battle if they don't have anybody between JSL and Rodrigo.
Danny, what do you think?
I don't know. I saw someone recently predict Munetzi has a big season next year. Maybe he hits.
Was it Munetzi's mom?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if you were playing in a system where he is really bombing in the box, maybe he's sweeping up some garbage. But yeah, to answer the general question, yes, they will be in big trouble. I mean, this highlights the issue that they have currently, which is it's really not about replacing Cunha. Cunha is such a unique talent, but also it's like you need to be able to find goals from around the pitch, and that probably is mostly going to be people who come in based on, the players that we have are not really ones who play in like a scoring position, even Rodrigo Gomez. And so it's kind of like, well, we need to first get those players, because like the players who are occupying those spaces are like Sarabia, Guedes, Hwang. It's like they're not coming close to scoring. So they better find some people to play in those spots, more or less, with maybe a tweak in the shape to score goals. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble again.
I will say my player I have not yet disclosed would be the second leading scorer behind JSL next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of goals to replace. I think they have to look at it from that. Like, there has to be what would to on a Wolves scale be considered a splash signing, like someone who's a proven goal scorer. Even if it's coming from a different league, it's not going to be coming from the EPL. I agree. I think we're all in agreement that if this player is on the squad currently, we will be in a relegation battle, at least for part of the season, if not for most of the season. My answer, though, I guess, would be placing a lot of faith in taking Vitor at his word, and that he does want Ryan Aït-Nouri to be a focal point of this team. And that would obviously be contingent on him being on this squad next season. But he is on the squad now, so he qualifies for this answer. And he does occasionally pop up in some of those positions like Danny mentioned. And, has some decent goal involvements this season. So I could see that being the case next year. Yes, we will be in a lot of trouble if that is true.
How about me and Al both picking wingbacks to be our second.
Well, it's not going to be any of
Yikes.
our like quote unquote attacking midfielders in this 3-4-2-1 because even the backup attacking midfielders aren't going to be there. I mean, I guess Bellegarde might be the only one who like didn't get mentioned that we should talk about, but all he does is shoot from outside the box, score worldies or miss. So, you know, I feel better about Adori than I do Bellegarde.
Todd from Minnesota, by the way, said big sassy.
Yeah, that would be really well. It could be really cool. It could also be very tragic. It could be like 2 goals. But yeah, who's to say that Big Sassy won't have a bounce back from multiple surgeries in his brief time with Wolves? From Carl on X, Carl Whitehouse, what do you think Pereira would do differently next season with the squad that he'll have at his disposal? What do you like? You go into this summer, other than like bringing signings in, like what's the number one thing you feel like he'll do slightly? Yeah, I don't know, differently. Like the question asked. I don't know why I'm re-asking the question.
3-6-1, baby. Here it comes.
I mean, a slightly more serious but very similar answer is that, you know, we've talked about how we hope that we abandon the attempts to go to 4 at the back. And I think that I don't think that he's eagerly trying to get there. He hasn't shown any, you know, signs that he's trying to get to 4 at the back. But I think the more interesting thing is what happens with the midfield. We've been so settled with this midfield too. And I wonder if he keeps it that way or if we see something else where we're having another midfielder in there or even, you know, a more traditional like 4 across the midfield or something else that would bring goal scoring players closer to the midfield instead of these like 2-10s. We don't really have the answers to that because a ton of players need to leave first in order to make room for that. So if it's the same group of players, I suspect a very similar shape. But I guess we hope that there's going to be a lot of turnover.
Yeah. Anyone else have a big change in mind?
I don't think there is. I just think it's profile of player more than anything, and certainly in those 10s, if that's what the wish is, that it's distinctively something in at least one of them that we haven't got. And this seems really weird. I could probably handle Manetzi in one of those roles if the opposite 10 is that distinct player that we haven't got on the squad right now that either has that blistering pace or what. I don't know. I don't know who it is or what that skill set is. But if there's a balance between Strand Larsen, Manetzi, and this another, then I could see him running with that, certainly against particular opponents away from home. But I do think the likes of really the players that are probably on their way out, like Wang, Guedes, Sarabia, it's got to be a totally different profile of player to what those guys offer.
Yeah. Danny mentioned maybe an extra midfielder. The only thing I could kind of see is that we strike out getting like a 10. We're rumored to be in talks with a number of them, and we last minute maybe sign a second striker and we could do like a 5-3-2. Like I wouldn't be that pissed about that if it meant Andre, Zhao, and one of Manetzi and Bellegarde, but then like a very mobile second striker to play with Larson, like I could live with that, as long as we maintain that defensive solidity, which again is a big TBD because there's some shoes to fill there as well. But otherwise, I got nothing in terms of the way of ideas. That's not my job. And Josh, you had a question you wanted to ask as part of No Stupid Questions.
Yeah, so pour one out for D-Bet. It looks like they are defunct.
Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, who's stunning. I mean, it just blows me away. So it was a 2-year contract. We don't know if Wolves will have the name of a company who no longer exists on their kit. So assuming they have to get a new sponsor, I'm going to have 3 different categories, and I want to answer from each of you on each of the 3 categories. If you could pick a former Wolves sponsor to be the new sponsor, what would it be? Paul?
I think I'm going to use the same answer on every one of your scenarios. I'm going Goodyear.
Goodyear. Danny.
Yeah, I was gonna say Goodyear. I really like the Goodyear logo.
Alex.
I only because they have great marketing, which we basically see once a year in the Super Bowl. Let's say
I knew it.
Doritos.
Doritos, baby.
Go for it. Why the hell
Bring
not?
back Doritos. God, I would wear the hell out of a Doritos kid. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, a Wolverhampton business, Paul.
I used to be able to say this again. Goodyear had a big plant in Wolverhampton, large employer. Kind of works.
Yeah, Danny.
I'm supposed to know local businesses in Wolverhampton.
I was going to say,
I'm at the Chamber of Commerce website right now. Oh, I don't know. Goodyear, I guess. What else is there, Paul?
Oh,
Novotel.
The
Novotel
University Money Shop. I would say Spoons.
I mean, they're getting plenty of business out of Vitor.
Yeah. That place was packed every time I went. Or better yet, one of the other. What's the goth bar again that I went to? I can't even remember now.
The Gifford.
Gifford. Yes.
Just have a bar on it like it's a beer league team.
We have betting leagues. It's not like it's that better. And then finally, any worldwide company. Paul, pick somebody other than Goodyear.
Pirelli.
Big tire guy.
Hey man, look, he works for Ford. He likes them tires.
Buy more tires, yeah.
Danny.
So just looking at companies that have vaguely orange or yellow logos, Fanta I think would do well. Also, I think if we're trying to get more money out of this, we could go Amazon.
Oh God, we had Amazon as if Amazon sponsored Wolverhampton Wanderers, that would be the hugest.
I would have to assume if that were true, we as international fans would get our Wolves merch from the Wolves store so much faster. There would have
and
to
hopefully
be
without
agreement.
the 200% tariffs that people are
right
now.
Jeff Bezos did his best to try to work around that, and I don't think it's going to happen. So.
Okay, so these aren't Wolverhampton businesses, but I've got two that I think make sense as they're already Wolves sponsors. I think Arctic Wolf, the cybersecurity company, if that's on the front of our shirt, who the hell is going to argue that? We're Wolverhampton Wanderers with a wolf head on our badge and a wolf howling at the moon on the front of our shirt. Maybe it's too wolvesy, but I think it fits. And then also, I still get a kick out of Visit Lauderdale running across the boards at Molyneux all the time. That my random home, which is basically just a glorified suburb of Miami, that is 90 minutes, or no, not 90 minutes, but 90 miles north of Miami, is somehow draped all over Molyneux, and I think that would be hilarious if it was just sunny Fort Lauderdale on the front of their shirts. I would get a kick out of that.
Chris Fisher just turned off the podcast.
Yeah. Chris Fisher's gonna be the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, man. He would support that. Come on.
Yeah. I think that's more likely. Why not have Netflix or something like that? Let's go. Let's get a streaming partner, get a deal going.
Yeah.
Come on.
I
also would like
HBO. They'll change the name of the service halfway through the season. Yeah. Our logo will always be changing.
Also, Dos Equis would be fun as well.
Ooh, yeah, that would be pretty nice.
But that's really we should have done that when Raul was in. If Wolves had Raul and were sponsored by Dos Equis or Corona,
that would be a must-have kit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
absolutely. We have missed the totally obvious worldwide company. It's got to be Espresso Wines.
Oh yes,
obviously.
Yeah, great shout.
Wait, I'm still scrolling through orange logos. I found the perfect one. Jeff Shea is going to jump all over this, and I assume that this is not a thing that our UK listeners will know anything about. the discount shoe store named Payless.
Oh my god. So good for so many reasons. That's so good.
Payless shoes. Oh man.
You can also go down the very dad route of saying Pampers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're piss in the front and shit at the back.
Or you could have something like Boy Scouts. Is there Boy Scouts in England, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay, have the
they
Boy
invent it?
Scouts since you have Cub Scouts. Yeah.
Global, baby. I love it. That reminds me of when we were talking about Wolves. I don't think we were talking about sponsors. I think we were trying to compare Fosun to a company, like a regular company we know. I was talking about Shen Yun. You see Wolves walking around with that on their shirt. Come experience China before communism. All right, really quickly, I have a no stupid question that's steeped in bitterness. So anyone who stuck around to the end of the show gets to enjoy just how bitter I can be. The thing I wanted to ask is, by the time Cunha's done at United, will he be remembered more fondly, just about the same, or less fondly than Antony? Somehow he's cheaper, but has higher expectations. And Antony like cries on the field as he wins games for Real Betis because he's probably not as bad a player as he was at United. But everyone goes to United and gets worse. Have fun with him.
It's a Bruno. Yeah, that's I don't know, probably the same.
I think for me, it heavily depends on the team that's around him. I still think it's a weird fit. There's actually a great article about it. People should go to my Twitter page and you'll see I retweeted it. I'll probably put it out again tomorrow about how poor a fit he is there. But it's just like, I could still see a scenario where it's kind of like Wolves. I mean, first of all, let's not forget that United are 2 places behind Wolves right now. And so like he could still basically be one of their best players and look like a really good signing from that perspective, but they still underachieve. And so it's kind of like, I don't know. I think Bruno Fernandes is a really good player, but it's also like, would he be as revered at United if they hadn't built such a shit team around him? And like Cunha could end up in a similar position where like they might actually like him quite a bit, but only because their ineptness at building a team around him means that he still ends up looking pretty good out of it.
I think he's got a kick-ass agent as well that you could cobble together a pretty average season in which he looks okay and may get like 6 to 8 goals, maybe double digits, and realize that it's still a shit show, especially behind the scenes. And he's off again within a year. After that point, probably goes abroad again and to a team that's perennial Europa League standard. And I think that's where he'll hit his level, and the Man United experiment will be just a stop on the road.
And
I
for
wonder
every
if
one of those,
Fabrizio will continue to tweet about
Yeah.
Cunha.
well, I was going to say, for every one of those goals, 2 or 3 Fabrizio Romano tweets about the amazing season he's having.
Yeah. That's going to do it for No Stupid Questions. Thank you to Esfuerzo Wines, our sponsor, the only sponsor we need, global company. Great qualification there, Paul. We should have. How did we miss that? I have a nice little glass of vino on the shirt. First the points, then the Pinot. I don't know. Esfuerzowines.com. Promo code Vitor to get a discount at checkout. It is rosé season. Some beautiful crisp whites. The weather is turning. It's summer. Enjoy it and use the promo code Vitor at checkout when you do.
Real quick, I could see, remember during the pandemic, one of the co-sponsors, so not the main shirt, but the other one was Manscaped. Would that not be so Jeff Shee to sell our club's shirt to Manscaped?
Oh, God.
Lends itself to so many jokes, this line of inquiry.
Sure does.
And that brings this week's show, our penultimate of the season, to an end. So we will be back after that Brentford game, not only to break down the final game of the season, but everything that's gone through the season as a whole. Who wins? Well, who doesn't get relegated from the prediction league? Whose season predictions are absolutely dreadful? All will be revealed come next week. So Thanks to Alex producing, Danny on the socials, you, the listener on the podcast or the YouTube viewer. Thank you, because without you, this show wouldn't be a thing. If you've yet to do so, please give us a star rating, high review on your podcast platform listing of choice, or head over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel and like our content. That does wonders in our exposure. So as you were getting ready for those summer vacations, you're making those plans, just think up the mighty Wolves.